are half the population. We earn, we save, and we endure. But the question is, do we invest? Money Matters for Her is an initiative by mutual fund Sahi Hai to celebrate women representation in the world of finance. You know, in the past couple of years, women have become an active investor base. They've proven to be more stable than their male counterparts. The drastic shift in the socio-financial fabric demands a closer view at the nitty-gritty of the situation. Many market studies as well have revealed that women hesitate to invest because they are afraid of failing. Now, we at Mutual Fund Sahi Hai, we took it on us to initiate a conversation with women pioneers of the financial world because we believe that when women talk, women listen. In today's session of Money Matters for Her, we have Sunaina da Cunha. She's the co-head fixed income credit at Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC Limited. She has been in the world of finance for nearly 2 decades now and has had a brightly celebrated career adorned with many accolades. Sunaina is not your stereotypic co-head. She is a woman who embraces life and she makes sure to take time out for herself. She believes in the work-life balance and loves to play the piano. Sunaina, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us here at Money Matters for Her. So Sunaina, before we step another foot in the conversation, I want to start by asking you, how did you enter the financial world? Was it by accident or was it a plan?
Well, you know, Zenia, I think I was very privileged to be born in a family that placed a lot of emphasis on education and career orientation. So when I was finishing school, my parents sat me down, much in the same way they did with my elder sister 3 years before that. And they told me all the various career opportunities available. And then, you know, what kind of studies I would need to do to, you know, attain that career and goal. And even at that stage, finance and investments were something that interested me. And, you know, I decided to take up commerce. And then after that, I did my MBA in finance from FMS Delhi. You know, in hindsight, maybe the fact that my dad was leading an NBFC might have had some subconscious play in the entire scheme of things. But, you know, those are counterfactuals. So, so I did my MBA in finance. And over there, I loved portfolio investment, security analysis. You know, are the subjects that over there. And when Birla Mutual Fund came on campus and offered me a role in investments, I jumped at it. And, you know, there's been really no looking back from there on. Wow. Because that role, you know, really, I think, you know, it's something that I've really enjoyed. It utilizes my analytical skills, you know, synthesizing the macro and the micro, you know, looking at thousands and thousands of variables which, you know, impact that decision making, which has to be really quick at certain points of time. And hence, you know, about 18 years ago, I joined Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund as a credit analyst. Then a couple of years later, I became a fund manager, and today I co-head fixed income investments.
Wow. Now, you spoke about, you know, how you were organically drawn towards finance and money. But what's very interesting about you, one of the interesting things I must say about you, is that you started your SIP, your systematic investment plan, with your very first salary. Now, first of all, I think that deserves a round of applause. But honestly, I want to ask you, how did you know so early to invest?
So I think it was fortunate that I started my career at a mutual fund. And just when I started, you know, there was a large marketing campaign that they were running for SIPs at, you know, Birla Sun Life, as it was called then. You know, there was a lot of this marketing brochures and, you know, propaganda and calendars around. And of course, everything was in paper format in those days.
Yes.
And I chanced upon it and, you know, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, and that's something that, you know, you learn. But when you're seeing it in numbers in terms of calculators, when they tell you that, you know, if you start today with this small amount, after so many years, this is your nest egg. But if you start 10 years later, that monthly amount is so much more, you suddenly, you know, it kind of talks to you. So that's when I decided that, let me start off with SIPs. I chose a couple of equity funds, and I started off.
Brilliant. Investing your very first salary, according to me, and I'm sure according to most people, requires a different level of discipline. And it's been shown and we see that women investors have a little more disciplined when it comes to investing. How do you respond to that?
I think the product SIP makes you disciplined, because you need to have pre-planned your cash flows.
Yes.
And done some amount of analysis, at least to some extent, of your inflows and outflows, and this is the balance, and then I can invest this much, and you're pre-committing to that. So
True.
on a particular month, you don't really overspend because you know that SIP is going to hit at some stage. So I think the product itself makes you disciplined.
Fantastic. That's a great point of view, and that's factual again. Now, Sunaina, through your interviews, I've realized how you carry a very strong opinion when it comes to women and investing. Can you please give us a mantra that you believe can help aid women investors?
So I think women investors tend to be too cautious. They want to have all the information in their hands before they actually go out there and invest. But what I would say is first, do a little bit of cash flow planning. Like I was talking earlier, look at your income, look at your expenditures, and then try and see if you can, move that out a little bit so that your savings today can be increased, and then look to then invest. After you've got a sense of your cash flows, that's when you need to start looking at what your goals are. Short-term goals and long-term goals. And keep that in mind when you're then building that portfolio. So, I think the first important thing is to start off.
Yes.
And you need to start with your cash flows, then get to your goals, and then, in a very logical manner, then start building that portfolio. Last but not least, you need to keep looking at that portfolio and rebalancing and recalibrating if it's not going as per plan. Not too often. But often enough to see that, you're on the right path.
Fantastic. As I'm listening to you and as I've heard you earlier, it's very clear to me that it's always been clear to you when it comes to women and investing, when it comes to money matters. So I want to ask you, I'm very curious actually to know, have you successfully influenced your family and your friends when it comes to investing?
A couple of months ago, my son celebrated his 7th birthday.
Okay.
And, post-pandemic, this is the first time we could have a little get-together with family.
Right.
So he actually got quite a bit of money.
Oh,
so
wow, that's some birthday.
So, and his birthday happens to coincide, a couple of days before Christmas. So the combination of it,
Timing.
he was very excited. So I actually sat him down and asked him, what he wanted to do with it, what toy he wanted to buy. And I also told him that if he waited a little while, maybe he could invest it and grow it. Now, the poor chap, since he was born, has heard about finance because, his father's a banker and his mother's a money manager. So,
Yes.
he has heard a couple of these terms.
Right.
But I thought it was the right time to actually start getting him formally introduced into the concept of finance and investing. And that's when then he actually surprised me with a lot of questions, What were the avenues of investing? Is it
Wow.
safe? Okay, will I lose my money? And I was quite surprised with that question, And then I told him, what the options were, and he actually chose to invest in a mutual fund. So
That's brilliant.
Yes.
Well, he's following in his parents' footsteps and the right direction. Let's talk about, clearly in our conversation so far, we've spoken about changing mindsets. And then you have technology that's enabling all of this. Do you think digitization has really been a strong enabler and has helped in the increasing number of women investors?
Absolutely. I think digitization has really changed the landscape. Because for women, particularly, let's say, urban women, sitting in the comfort of your home, you can now actually, have access to a lot of information. You have the privacy that it affords you when you want to actually invest, redeem, track your portfolio without somebody, peeping over your shoulder if you've gone to a physical office, or having to ask somebody to take you to a bank if you're, not mobile yourself. And at the click of a button, you can do all this, including starting off the investment journey through your eKYC. So digitization, I think, has really played a fairly large role, particularly in the last 2 years in the pandemic, when a lot of people were at home, and looking at the way the markets have gone, we saw a large entry of people, including women, into markets.
Fantastic. Now, women in India have been saving for ages, as we all know, right? Mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and we're enviably good at it, when we can figure out our monthly budget so easily and, so effortlessly. What do you think hinders us from investing formally?
So I think a lot of it is this big bogey thought in everyone's head that investments is esoteric, it's too difficult. I have too many things on my plate, so why bother about it? Let somebody else take care of it.
True.
And as a result, a lot of women do not, look at that aspect of their lives. But, investments is not rocket science. It's very easy. So you just can overcome that by, starting to read about it, speak to people about it, people who are, well versed with the subject, and then start off with, a small amount. So I think that's one big bogey people have in their heads. Secondly, I think, women tend to emphasize more on saving versus investments. So they're very conscious about expenditure. And they save money and are very proud of it, which they should be, but then they forget to make that saving work for them. So that's the second thing. And third, as I said earlier, women tend to be, this is stereotypical of course, but they tend to be a little too cautious.
Okay, so things that need to change. Now, Sunaina, I read an article where you beautifully explained how the needs of urban and rural women are different when it comes to investing. Do you think the situation now has changed and evolved, and what according to you is required to still bridge any gaps that may be there?
So, actually, some time ago, I was reading this Niti Aayog article that mentioned that just 24% of women are actually part of the workforce. And that number is half the global average. But if we're able to bridge that gap, we actually are able to add about $700 billion to our economy. So that's, the kind of difference women can make if they join the formal economy. Like we said earlier, women are very good at saving, and generally, in most traditional households, managing the monthly budget does fall on the woman. And she is able to save from that as well. But that saving tends to find its way into, cash, which is locked up in your tijori, and a lot of it came out during demonetization.
Yes.
It gets invested in gold or jewelry. And sometimes it also finds its way in the informal interest rate markets where, women lend amongst themselves and, through their own word of mouth and through their own ways of figuring out within their communities, they do a little bit of lending. Now imagine if all that money actually finds its way into the formal economy.
Yes.
For a country like India, which has, a CAD deficit, that could actually be another source of capital coming in. So that can actually make a big difference.
We talk so much about how women can influence others and make mindset shifts of families and of, communities and organizations. But this is a tangible fact. We need to talk about the $700 billion now.
Absolutely. And in rural India, I've actually seen this up close and personal, exactly what you're talking about. Because, as part of my work, we invest a lot in these microfinancial institutions, which are institutions that lend only to women for an economic activity in rural India or semi-urban India. And when I traveled, the length and breadth to, these areas, to sit in those center meetings where the women come, hear their stories about how they started an economic activity, how they became economically independent, and then how, they were able to take that forward and, the confidence that they were able to build for themselves and knowing that they can take care of their families, it was very inspiring stories. So I think that's a quiet revolution that has been playing out in rural India, but something that, left me super impressed.
Sunaina, what do you envisage should be done to promote greater financial inclusion of women?
So I think more conversations like this, and also more conversations happening at the family level. It should start young for children, and also in that process, the women in the household also participate. And we study so much in schools, but it's only when I actually took a formalized course in finance when you actually learn the 101 of investing.
Yes.
And that, is something that probably we need to start off at an earlier stage for children. So maybe formally start that off at the school level. But, till that happens, the informal discussions around the dining table, just to introduce children and to introduce, the women of the household into this discussion. Because the last 2 years has taught us that life can be very unpredictable. And suddenly, if, life turns out in a particular manner that the woman of the house is suddenly left grappling not only with grief and other issues, but also with the finances. Yeah. And at that stage is unaware of what is invested where the money is, what insurance you have. It's a lot for people to then tackle and handle at that. And we've seen this happen, in a lot of cases. So I think, we need to take a leaf and learn and start off early enough.
Fantastic. Sunaina, this conversation is getting very interesting, and I want to end it on an even far interesting note by doing a quick rapid fire. Yeah,
Sure.
Are you ready for it?
Go for it. Let's go.
Okay. Money, music, books, fashion, family. Order of your preference.
So I think there are various different aspects of life that you have to keep juggling all the time. The priority depends on the circumstance. My only objective in life is to ensure that all the balls keep juggling and in the air and I don't drop any of them.
Wow, that's so lovely. What music are you listening to currently?
So I'm trained in Western classical music. So that's something I listen to. And also then blues, jazz, pop. I listen to various genre of music.
So what's the background track in your life currently? The one that keeps playing in your head?
The little voice of my 7-year-old son.
That's good music to the ears. Tell us, what's your favorite book, one that you possibly, keep revisiting?
So I think in fiction it'll be Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. And non-fiction would be Common Stocks, Uncommon Profits by Phillips Fisher.
Okay. Your investment advice for the women watching us in 10 words.
Start investing, keep investing.
Okay.
4 words.
4 words. That's fantastic. Tell us, what's your favorite mutual fund feature and why?
I think that you can start with an investment as small as rupees 500. And the fact that an SIP can make it a very disciplined investment. So that's 2 actually.
What do you love most about SIP?
The fact that, it keeps you disciplined.
Yes, so discipline is the key word. What do you have to say to the woman who has been saving but hesitates to invest?
Start. There's nothing like now. Don't keep waiting for the right time. Take that first step today.
Take the first step. 3 things that are an absolute must before we invest.
Planning your budget. Noting down your goals, both short-term and long-term. And building a holistic portfolio so that you can attain all those goals.
Sunaina, what change do you wish to see in the world of finance?
Maybe more women participating professionally as well as investors. So that I think would be very encouraging if we actually see more participation.
More participation it is. Sunaina, leave us with your mantra of investment.
Well, as a fixed income professional, I think it would be safety first, then liquidity, then returns in that order. But my personal mantra would be ensuring highest risk-adjusted returns. So that would be my 2 mantras.
Sunaina, thank you so much. It's been our utmost pleasure to have this conversation. I think your clarity of thought, your words of wisdom, your demeanor, and most importantly, your smile. It's just going to be so encouraging for all the women listening to us to go and invest. So thank you for that lovely conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And also, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our audience. You've been showering so much love on this series. It is because of you that we keep coming back with Women Pioneers. I hope you will stay the course with us and be inspired to invest wisely.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.